Okay, with this lesson we're going to look at solving quadratic equations still. So the following being asked to solve these equations. So we know we should first, when we're solving a quadratic equation, remember a quadratic is when the highest power is 2, we should always have one side equaling 0. So we've done that, we've got all the terms. The next thing we do when we're solving is we should always check for a common factor. So in this example, there's no common factor. And then the second thing we would do is check for if there was any of the patterns, because we want to factorize this. So first check for a common factor, then second check if it's one of the patterns to save you time. Okay, because this one doesn't have any of those patterns either, so then the third thing we might try now is to factorize using the cross method. Okay, so with the cross method, remember we put this cross here. Now we're going to get factors of x squared, so things that were times together to give x squared, so x and x. Then we want to get factors of 5. So the only factors of 5 are 1 times 5. And so if we do positive 5 by positive 1, and then we can check. So remember we multiply these two together, so we get 5x, and then if we multiply the other one too, we get x. And then we just check. If we add them, do we get the middle term? We do. So that way we know that these across this way is our brackets. So if we go to factorize this expression, we can say that it's actually x plus 5, x plus 1, and we now have said it equals 0. Once you've got it factorized, you can now use the null factor law and solve the equation. Okay, so the null factor law says that you can let each of those brackets equal 0. So remember with quadratics, we could have more than one answer. And then you keep rearranging those little equations now to get x by itself. So you move the thing over. So we get x equals negative 5. That's one answer. Or x could equal negative 1. That's our two possible answers. Okay, with this next one, so we're getting asked still to solve x squared minus 10x equals 11. So remember we need, when we solve for a quadratic, we need all the terms on one side and the other side equaling 0. Okay, so I'm going to move this 11 over an equal sign, so it will do the opposite, and which is at the moment on that side, this side it's plussing, so it's minusing on that side, and I've let it equal 0. So then we go on to our next step, and remember our next step was to check for common factors, and there's no common factors in this one. And then the third, we look for patterns, and there's no patterns in this one, so therefore we might go try the cross method to factorize. So let's go and do the cross method. So we're actually trying to factorize it. So next year there'll be some other methods you could try as well, but we're going to use the cross method. Okay, so with the cross method we get factors of x squared, which is x and x, and factors of negative 11. So I could say negative 11 times positive 1, that gives negative 11. And if we do the multiplying, we see we get negative 11x and positive x, and when we add them it gives the term in the middle. So these brackets out here become our brackets, so we can factorize that expression to be x minus 11, x plus 1 equals 0, and then we use the null factor law to solve. Okay, so we get x minus 11 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. So x equals 11, one answer, or x equals negative 1 is your other answer. Okay, just going to do one more, and if we have a look, we've got all the terms on one side and one side equaling 0, so I can go on to my next step. My next step is to look for common factors. There's no common factor and there's no patterns in there, so I'm going to try the cross method. Now this one is a little bit more challenging. So what are factors of 7x squared? So if I multiply 7x by x, I could do positive 1 times negative 5. If I times positive 1 and negative 5, I get negative 5. Now let's test our thing. We would have x, 1x, so x times 1, and then I'd have 7x times negative 5. That would be negative 35x. That is not going to add to give that. So I'm going to have to change something, something around here. Now, because there's no other factors of negative 5, but what happens if I put the 5 up here, and I'm going to try positive 5 there and negative 1 there. So then if we have x times 5, we get 5x. Then we have 7x times negative 1 is negative 7x. Now when we add these, we do get that term in the middle. So my brackets are going to be these across here. You can see when we have a number in front of this x squared term now, it's very important, the setup of the cross method, so that you get your brackets right. Because the brackets are actually 7x plus 5 and x minus 1. And we're going to let that equal 0. So now null factor law states we can let each of those brackets equal 0. And now we just keep solving. So remember, when we're solving, move the things over the equal sign. So 7x would equal negative 5. Now to get x by itself, it'd be negative 5 divided by 7. So you can leave your answer like that, or we do the other one, or x equals positive 1.